What is up, everybody? How's it going? Austin Prechtelevate Performance, coming at you live. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It is Winning Wednesday. Winning Wednesday. So, if you are catching this right now live or a replay, hashtag replay, make sure that you tell me a win in the comments. Tell me a win in the comments. I'm just going to make this one a quick live, going over three of the top traits. And this isn't like like end all be all, right? There are a lot of other traits that make somebody successful when it comes to working towards their goals. And I will say, right, I put best in quotation marks because you can't really compare results one to one, right? Everybody's trying to achieve different things in their life and in their journey. And so I don't think it's fair to compare. It's like, different books that are in different chapters, right? But what I will say and what I will define by, and what I mean by saying best, right, is they make the most progress, like optimally, towards their goal, right? Whatever that goal is, they make consistent progress towards that and they succeed at it, right? And so let's talk about the top three traits, though, because I think that if you can, embody some of these or look in your own journey and in your own life where you're at right now, in terms of like, how can I improve in these areas, and start to kind of like, look within a little bit and think like, oh, like how can I implement this in my own life and in my own journey, you're going to see more success in your goals. And so let's jump into it. So as you guys are tuning in, feel free to say hey in the chat, drop a like so that way other people get a chance to see this because it helps with the algorithm. But yeah, guys. So trait number one is that they are integral, right? Integral to their goals, integral, more importantly, to like the small things, right? The basics. They don't think that they're above the basics and they're integral to those basics, like tracking their food regularly, like tracking it daily, right? Even on the weekends. And they meal prep regularly, right? Even on the weekends. And because of that, because they're integral to these things, they're doing the things that they say they'll do on a daily basis, like working out, like tracking their food, meal prepping. They take a lot of like the guesswork out of their lives. They take a lot of the chance out of whether or not they're going to have a successful day that day, right? Whether or not they're going to make headway, make progress towards their goals that day, because they're not flying blind. They have a blueprint and they're following on a daily basis. They're tracking their food, right? They're making sure that they're in a caloric deficit if their goal is to lose weight. They're making sure that they're getting enough protein if their goal is to recomp their body and also to build muscle, right? So, they're doing these things on a daily basis. And it doesn't matter if it's on the weekends. It doesn't matter if they have a bad day. They're doing these things because they're integral to these things. They've almost incorporated these into like basically like a second nature type of thing, where it's like it's almost like brushing their teeth, right? Because it's become such a habit for them. So that's the first trait. And what that does, right? Why is that so important? Well, one, you have to do the work if you want to get the results, right? But you have to do the work consistently if you want to get the results. Because when it comes to succeeding in your goals, like whether it's weight loss or weight gain or whatever it may be, your goal, like the blueprint for success really is just consistency, right? Consistently taking action, right? And that's conducive to your goals, right? Being consistent with it on a daily basis, over time, with a good plan in place, right, equals success, right? It's just a matter of showing up and putting in the reps. It's not about like there's like these secrets out there that that you haven't learned yet for the most part. Like honestly, like weight loss and weight gain and building muscle and things like that, like they're fairly simple concepts. Once you learn it, it's pretty easy to understand. But they are sometimes difficult to implement, right? And integrate into our lives and integrate into our schedule. And so that's the hard part, right? You can know what you need to do, but it's hard to hold yourself accountable to doing those things until it becomes a habit and a routine. And even then, sometimes it's hard, right? I'm not going to pretend like this morning, like I didn't want to hit fucking legs, but I did it anyways because I'm integral to that shit. And I also wrote a note in it because I prepped for it because I knew I was hitting legs. Because yesterday I knew I was going to hit legs today. I even put a little note next to it. I was like, I don't care how shitty you feel. Don't bitch out on leg day. Do it. Don't it's not going to be that bad, right? And I did it, and it's not that bad. Although I did think in that moment, I was like, God, I would just rather hit something else right now. Got shitty sleep last night, but that's beside the point. But I was integral to that shit, right? And so that's the first trait, though, is just being integral to your shit, with tracking, working out, meal prepping, doing these things on a daily basis, because it prevents the chaos of life from kind of like fucking you over because you're prepared, right? And if you prepare, if you fail to prepare to fail, right? That's like a really like notable quote that a lot of people like to use, but it's true, right? Like if you can take a lot of like the iffiness out of your day to day of whether or not you're going to be successful or not by like just knocking out those like 2 or 3 things on a daily basis, right? You're basically guaranteeing success over the long term. So it's super important to do this and to be integral to those things. So that's the first thing. Number two, they don't make excuses as to why they can't do it, right? They don't make excuses as to why they can't. They look for ways that they can, right? Because a lot of times it's easy in our day to day to just throw in the towel and be like, oh shit, today was a bad day. You know, I can't do it. You know, my kid got sick today. I can't do it. I was super busy today. I can't do it. I had something unexpected happen at work that maybe work later. I can't meal prep now, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. So in this like I can't mindset, instead of looking for ways that they can, right? Instead of being adaptive. That's one of the biggest traits that I see that makes or breaks somebody in terms of whether or not they're gonna be consistent in their journey, right? And making progress in their journey is they look for ways that they can and not for ways that they can't, right? A lot of that is like a mentality, right? It's a lot of that's a perspective. What's up, Tabby? How's it going? How's it going? And so looking for ways that they can and not for ways that they can't. Because if you're always looking for ways that you can't and how you can get out of this, you're not gonna be integral to your shit, right? You're always gonna look for ways that you can't do things. And so the next time, right, that you have something come up in your life, I challenge you, because I'm gonna put this thought in your head right now, instead of like going towards the path, like the thought that you typically go to, which is how can I get out of this, or how can I get away from this, or I can't do this right now. Instead of that being your first thought, I challenge you to challenge that thought with the thought of why can't I do this right now, right? Like why can't I? Like I can figure this out. I can figure this out. I can multitask. I can squeeze it in here. I can go for that walk while I eat or something like that, and being adaptive and thinking for yourself a little bit in those moments of how can I be adaptive to still make this happen for myself, because it's important, right? And why is this important, and why does this help people be successful in being adaptive, right? It's because you're not just going to settle for like the not excuse, right? Because a lot of times these things that we have going on are valid, but you're not settling for just that, right? You're like looking at like shitty moment of the chaos of life and saying like, nah, I can fucking do this still. Let me figure it out. Let me like push the limit a little bit and see where I can, carve that time out and make that time, or multitask, or whatever it may be. That's a super important quality. And it's one of those things that all of these things that I'm talking about, right? These are habits, these are skills, so they can be learned and you can improve in these areas of your life. So I encourage you to do that. That's why I'm talking about this on this live. But like if you're, lacking in some of these areas I'm talking about right now, and you go into a fitness journey, like you're gonna have a harder time if you're not actively trying to work on these things. Because these are like kind of like the pillars of success. These are kind of the pillars of, especially as a parent. If you're a parent and you're watching this, like man, like just case in point, right? I did not want to hit legs today. I would have rather hit literally just about anything. But it was in my program that I had to do it. And so I was integral to that shit. But why didn't I want to do that? Well, it's because our kid is, getting to the age where he's starting to be afraid of the dark, and he's starting to have more like night terrors and shit like that. And so it's one of those things where we're just like, we were up like, so thankful for Jessica, because she got up with him and was like, helping him out in the middle of the night and like sleeping in there and trying to like calm him down and stuff like that for like hours. But it was still just like disrupted sleep over and over and over again. And then she brought him up into the room and things like that. And it was just like, just like getting really poor quality sleep. And so, it's easy in that moment of the chaos of life to be like, man, I feel like shit. Like I'm tired today. I would rather hit like anything other than legs today. Yet, I said I was going to fucking hit legs. Yet, I said I was going to go live today. Yet I have these things that I am integral to and I have to do, and I'm going to be adaptive to do those things no matter fucking what, because I said I was going to, right? And you won't always follow through, right? There are going to be moments of weakness where you don't do it. But the more often that you do, and the more often you can work on making yourself into the person that does that shit, the better off you're going to be, the more successful you're going to be in your journey. So, yeah. Third thing, right? Number 3. And this is something that will just lead you to living a happier life in general, not just for your fitness journey, but they don't sweat the small stuff, right? And I don't mean that doesn't, and I don't mean by that they ignore the small things that, because the devil's in the detail, right? Like the more you can get detailed with things, the better, right? And pay attention to the small things, the better you're going to be in control of things. But I'm talking about in the moments that you're struggling or you're having a bad day or something like happens, like I don't know, you drop something or you spill your coffee or whatever it may be, or your kid or spouse, you get in a little tiff with them or whatever, and like you let it ruin your whole fucking day, right? You let it ruin your whole day and you dwell on it. Those my clients that see the best, right? Best, whatever you want to measure that by, results, and for me, it's consistently making progress towards their goals and succeeding at reaching whatever their goals are. Is they don't sweat the small stuff, right? They're like water. They let things like roll. They just go with the flow. They let things roll over them. They don't like sit and dwell and make a big deal out of little shit that actually truly does not matter if you zoom out, right? And you pay attention to the grand scheme of things, right? They don't sweat the small stuff. They don't let a bad moment turn into a bad 5 minutes, turn into a bad hour, turn into a bad day, turn into a bad week, right? They don't let that shit happen. They cut the head off of that negative thought snake, basically. They cut the head off of that snake before it turns into something bigger, right? Before it builds into a big old fucking giant ball of momentum that's gonna like ruin a lot of and set you back, right? For weeks, potentially. And so they don't let a bad day turn into a bad week. They just keep showing up, right? They just keep showing up on a regular basis. And because of that, they've built this like belief and this tenacity inside of themselves that like, I can keep showing up. Like I just, at the end of the day, it's not showing up perfectly, right? Perfection does not exist. It's not a real thing for anybody in their journey. Like you can't be perfect at shit. But what you can do is be consistent, right? And if you're consistent, you're going to get to where you want to go. You're going to make consistent progress. So yeah. So those are kind of the top 3 traits. Like, and so if you're somebody right now who's struggling in their journey, try to emulate some of that. Try to like figure out where in your life that you can take one of these 3 things and apply it to your, day to day, to your mindset, to your journey, to your fitness goals, to your nutrition, whatever it may be that you're working on right now. These 3 traits are like time and time again. Like these are like these aren't like, I could probably sit on another day and think about another 3 like top traits, but these are the ones that come to mind today that like really like, really separate folks from those who like, are just, that truly want this for themselves and that are going to reach their goals, and those that just, are romanticizing the thought of going on a fitness journey for themselves, right? Like if you want it, you're going to make it happen, right? At the end of the day, if you want it, you're going to make it happen. It might be messy as fuck in the process of making it happen, right? Because life's not perfect and life is chaotic. But if you truly, truly, truly want it, right, and you want it for yourself, and your why is deep enough, you will make it happen. And so, yeah. But at the end of the day, those are the top 3 traits. So look in your own life, in your own journey, where you could be improving in these areas. And if you start working on it and you're proactive about it, you're going to have a better chance of succeeding. So I hope that this was valuable. I hope that this was helpful. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys today. Happy Wednesday. Again, feel free to share a win in the comments. Love seeing those. But other than that, I'm gonna head to a coffee shop, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.